This podcast has been brought to you by Xenio Travel. We are building the most amazing hospitality network.
Well, man, thank you for coming to visit.
Cheers.
Thank you for being on the podcast.
It's been a long time coming.
Yeah. I like to tell people, how is it that we got to know each other? And I was in the beginning of my second run across America. I think it was on the first day, probably. And you told me, you called me out of the blue and you said that you were going to help and you said, just let me know where you end up the day and I'll call the hotels and get a hotel to let you stay for free. And I was thinking, that may be real because I know that a lot of people are super cool. I just couldn't imagine how that would work because it's, I thought, okay, it's a guy with good intentions, but, who knows if he will be able to convince a hotel to. Especially now that I was running without any major cause that I was raising money for or anything like that. Plus, I'm a dude. And it is California, and then I thought, okay, let's see, maybe it works, and it worked really well. Like the first day that you were trying, you already got me a very nice hotel to stay, and I was first of all, at the end of the day, being able to stay in a hotel instead of camping is a tremendous difference in comfort and satisfaction. And knowing that it was given to you makes it even more special. And you kept helping me for weeks. And that had a very big impact to the point that years later, I tried to replicate that experience and help other runners. And I had some success. It wasn't great. It was like, but maybe my perspective is incorrect because I thought that it was being super difficult to convince the hotel owners and or restaurants or whatever I was calling. But maybe it was difficult for you as well, and you were just persisting longer. I don't know. I don't know if you had any magic words or incantations that you could say that would convince people. But in my case, it was pretty hard. But later, I found a different way to help, which was using my network, instead of trying to convince the hotels, I started introducing the runner to my friends along the way. And that was such an easy sell, right? It was so easy. I could get a place every time that there was a coincidence, I could get it. And also I start introducing the runners to the hashers, which is a fantastic network for this. But all that started with your example. And you helping me that time, like without me even asking, you just took the initiative to do it. I'll be grateful forever for that. So thank you.
I'm really glad to get this validation for that work and to know that it made such a difference to you.
You did.
And it was hard. It took a lot of calls sometimes. Sometimes it'd be a single call and someone would just surprise me with a yes. But very often it would take literally more than a dozen phone conversations. I'd say I found that I never did convince anybody. The people that ultimately said yes were folks who were already inclined to help somebody in a situation like that, people who could imagine themselves or wanted to imagine themselves doing what you were doing. And as you said, you were a male and doing it more or less for yourself, not for a cause per se. And that did present some challenges. I've supported a lot of people similarly And statistically speaking, I found that it's a lot easier to promote a woman athlete, and it's very, very much easier to promote somebody with a cause. The golden ticket being a female running for a veterans charity.
That one must be really easy to find.
Oh gosh, it is the easiest thing to sell ever. But my job is to treat everybody equally and to give the same amount of dedication and support to somebody, just because at that point I hadn't done it myself, but I'd been in those positions and helped other people directly. So helping because I was the one who could, and it gave me a lot of satisfaction and joy to know that you or somebody out there had a roof over their head. And then when it came time for me to do my deed and I ran across the country, having supported people first, it made it that much easier for me to ask for help. With my head held high, and to know that I'd earned that. But I think that we all do, anybody who takes on a challenge like crossing an entire continent, because maybe our reasons are personal, but the experience is so human that anybody can relate.
Yeah, it is incredible. I keep telling people, even years after that I said, not necessarily a run, but you should do something. Maybe you like bicycle riding, you should do something physical. That's what I keep saying. If you like to climb mountains, then climb mountains. But whatever you choose to do, I tell them that it has to be so difficult that you cannot be sure that you can finish. No matter how much you put yourself into it, it has to be that level of challenge, because otherwise it's just working out. And when you decide to do something like running across America, because it's such a long duration event with so many variables, including being on the side of the road, exposed to traffic, that you need to really pay attention. I would say the chances that you give up keep going down, because most people give up in the beginning, and especially after halfway done. I would say after halfway done, I felt that it was easier to just keep doing and persisting and going, until it was like the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks were so horrible, in both cases. Because they are, at that point, when you're when you're in the last state, your psychological fatigue is maximum at that point.
Yet you also don't want it to end.
yeah, in a way you don't want it to end. In another, you are already on the road, in my case, for 4 months. And you're super social, but you're being social with strangers, not your regular friends. And in fact, when one of my friends would travel and go and meet me on the road, that was so special, because it's a familiar face with you supporting, and I don't know if they will ever have an opportunity to comprehend how amazing it was that they did it. I really have a very special feeling about the people that went there, that are people that knew me, but being there on the road, you're in a way isolated. It's almost like being in jail, with the difference that you can be run over every day, right? And in fact, a few people died doing it. I would, if you divide the number of people that finished by the number of people that died trying, it's not among the safest sports in the world. The odds are not that great.
And that reminds me of our brother Mark Balmer, who was killed by a distracted driver. He was on his way to being the second person to cross the whole continent barefoot. And I think he was going to beat my time too. That was a tragedy.
Yeah, and I did a podcast with a runner that got hit, in Ohio, Nick, right?
Sounds familiar.
It was horrible. Like the amount of damage that he got.
Yeah, I actually got bumped when I was in maybe Columbus, Ohio, or something. It was very minor. It just like messed up my hip a little bit. It was at an intersection, but I could see that the person was texting actually when she nudged me.
Yeah. So there is plenty of danger, and it's a but I don't like to focus just on running. You can do that also in other things,
Yeah.
I know people that like to swim or they do triathlon. So they set a goal like, okay, I'm going to do Ironman, but I have to get to Hawaii, to Kona Ironman. Well, that one is difficult to even get in, right? So that means you set up a challenge that is really high. And I have a few friends that did that one, and they are incredibly proud of that accomplishment because they know how much it took, just to qualify for it.
I've got a quote for you that you might like. I've never been able to figure out who actually said this at first. And I've Googled it, so if anybody can figure out who said this, kudos to you. But it's the greatest moment of our lives is when our mind or our body is stretched to its limit in the voluntary pursuit of something both difficult and worthwhile.
Good quote. There is also a quote that I like, kind of similar, on the movie Into the Wild, and on the book, of course, that Alexander Supertramp said that at some point in your life you need to measure yourself against something much bigger than you. And I think that the physical pursuit is necessary, the physical effort. It cannot be something intellectual, because we have an evolutionary code in us. We have a lot of software in us that was written over 2 million years of evolution coming out of the trees, and some 200,000 years of evolution as anatomically modern apes. And that evolutionary code is made of major physical accomplishments and many small, incredible number of small intellectual accomplishments. But the big ones are the physical ones. The big units. It's like, okay, surviving this winter, and you need to walk down that valley through the winter. You make it or you didn't survive it. Or your genetic code does not continue into the future. So when we get into a multi-day, seriously difficult pursuit, I think it activates. The brain starts going like, oh, I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on. Let me look back on the shelf, see if I have software to know how to deal with that. And then it goes and it finds this code that has been built up over 2 million years. And it says, okay, here's how I handle it. So in a sense, I'm making a very simplistic analogy with the brain being a computer, but that's a way that I understand it. So we have the software for a lot of situations. We have the software to survive, extreme cold for short periods. We can survive vacuum for a few seconds. There are a lot of things that we can do that are way outside of normalcy. But you need to be there to ever experience it, to ever use it. So, but there is something a little different about what you did, a little unusual, which is you did it barefoot. So you ran from where to where?
Huntington Beach, California, LA area, to Jacob Riis Park in New York City.
And you did that without shoes?
Without shoes entirely. I carried a pair of flip-flops for going into stores and restaurants.
Yeah.
And I cut the heel and the toes off of them, so I was hanging off, so it could fit in my backpack better. But it was pretty ridiculous. I might as well have not had them at all. But I only wore them to go inside public buildings. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been allowed to shop.
Yeah, exactly. I did a lot of training barefoot, so I don't mention it with the feeling that it's something superhuman. It's not, no. But I know that it takes a lot of dedicated training that is specific to that to be able to do so many miles. Because when I was doing my training, I would do like 3-4 miles barefoot. Then I had to put shoes on, otherwise I would have blisters. And I would like to know how you dealt with that.
A lot of miles. Honestly, my feet were not at their toughest during or immediately after the Transcon. It wasn't until a year later, after I'd spent time in some mountains in Arizona, that I'd say my feet were genuinely tough as they ever were. During the Transcon, my longest day was 54 miles, I think, in New Mexico. And that's a long day for me.
Yeah.
There's people who run much further, day after day after day, going across the country. They all had shoes. But you know, the thing that most people don't consider is the energy exchange, like the relative cost of going barefoot versus in shoes. So when I run barefoot, you know, obviously I'm leaving skin behind with every step. Sooner or later, my body has to rebuild that lost skin. So at some point, I have to eat and I have to rest. But if I wore shoes, as you know, you how many pairs of shoes did you go through during your crossing? 8 pairs of shoes. You had to account for those financially, or somebody had to give them to you. So they had to be replaced, just like the skin on my feet had to be replaced, which means that we both had to account for that, stop, and either work or rebuild. And you chose, I assume, to prepare financially beforehand. But again, you had to compensate for that somehow. So the energy exchange, I believe, is about equivalent. You know, whether you work and save money to buy a pair of shoes, or you just stop and rebuild the skin. Yeah, I'm not a foot person. I just feel comfortable running barefoot, but I love the metaphor that's inherent in barefoot running, and the comparison to the normal, the conventional way of running these days. Because, well, I proved it. You don't need the shoes. Sure does make it a lot easier.
Well, we also proved you don't need the car.
Yeah.
You know, like you can just walk.
And on that note,
doesn't mean that we don't want to use it.
Did you know that there are places in the United States that you cannot legally reach on your own 2 feet? You have to own or have access to a motorized vehicle?
Yeah, I know, for instance, that there are bridges that you cannot cross on foot.
Yeah.
You know, there are several places where you cannot go on foot. In fact, there are airports that have no access to walk to the airport. And one of my friends told me that he was in England and he wanted to reach this airport and he couldn't find any way. And he ended up walking through a park that was nearby, and then he ended up going to some alley and something, and suddenly he found himself inside the property of the airport, but he was inside the luggage area. He ended up being inside a security zone of the airport by accident, and he walked in, but now he was really afraid that if someone saw him there, he would really get in trouble. And apparently they found him, but then they understood what happened, and he was okay. but yeah, there are places that there is no way to walk in.
Yeah. Well, the first time I ran across the years, which is a big race, it's a 6 and now a 10-day race, canceled this year, unfortunately. But at the end of the year, beginning of the new year, first time I ran it, I flew into Phoenix, and I had to get there. I had to get to the race on foot because, as usual, I was flat broke, but I'd signed myself up for this race. So I had to jog 20 some odd miles in the middle of the night, and I had to get out of, was it Sky Harbor? Yeah, Sky Harbor in Phoenix on foot. And I almost got arrested. This cop just couldn't believe that, no, I just got off a plane, sir. You know, I'm going to a race. Yeah. BS, yeah, you've got a hoodie and dreadlocks, no way. I'm like, no, really, I just got off a plane and I'm headed to a big race.
Yeah. The cops stopped me on a bridge in Louisiana once, but the alternative, if I didn't, and the bridge had a space, but that you could physically, you could walk, there was I guess it used to be a pedestrian kind of a sidewalk, but they put signs and they closed that up. The alternative to walk across was to go some 40 miles north and take another bridge.
It's ridiculous.
And then
that's
and I was
a day and a half.
and I went through. I was going through, and I was already on the way down on the other side when the cops showed up, and it was a big deal. It took like a sergeant had to come over, and they asked me all the questions, but I always had the business cards, and I had a good story, and then at some point the sergeant said, you're not supposed to be on this bridge. I said, well, I know I'm supposed to get to the next town, and I understand, clearly I understand that you guys prefer that I don't use it, but that at that time it sounded like a good idea.
Well, are you going to give me free food so I can
then
go
he said,
along?
okay, I'll let you go. I said, all right, can I go this way though? He said, all right, yeah, go, but don't cross this bridge again. He said, promise you, I'm not planning to do that. Not planning it. But yeah, I don't know how was in your case all the interactions with the authorities along the run.
I only had one near bad experience. Mostly, though, I was supported a couple of times. Local sheriff's departments usually would actually take my pack ahead and drop water for me. One time in Naravaisa, New Mexico, Sergeant Brake of the New Mexico Highway Patrol. So I was being supported that day by the local sheriff's deputy, and he had my backpack and dropped water for me. And luckily, he had stopped to check on me. And we were standing on the side of the road having a conversation, totally friendly. Keep in mind that I had long dreadlocks and no shoes, and I was grimy and sweaty from running so many miles already that day. And this highway patrol officer, Sergeant Brake, shows up, and he just pushed by me like I wasn't even there. All he saw was a dirty hippie and assumed that I was being interrogated. And he starts talking to the deputy, and very clearly suggesting hey, what can we do to this guy? How can we get him behind bars today? And the deputy actually went over to his cruiser at a point and flipped the gumballs on and let him know, now we're on camera, dude. So everything you're saying is being recorded, and that was pretty much the end of it. Sure. We have a whole party showing up now. This podcast is going to get really interesting. Oh, no, it's just the mail. But other than that, my experiences with law enforcement was very positive. They were encouraging. My personal interactions with them were very encouraging and supportive. However, I will say that when I called ahead, anytime I called ahead, especially Highway Patrol, they would always tell me, oh no, you can't run on that, or we would prefer that you take a different route, or you have to have insurance to do that. And it would often turn out to be a bald-faced lie. For instance,
that doesn't exist.
Yeah,
that's a product that doesn't exist.
They make stuff up.
They're just making it up.
Like Arizona, it is perfectly legal to walk, run, trot, whatever, on your own 2 feet on the side of Interstate 40. I didn't know that at first, and I called ahead to Highway Patrol in several locations and asked them for permission, and they said no, and if we see you, we'll arrest you, because now we've told you no. So I got to Williams, Arizona, which is just south of the Grand Canyon on I-40. I got special permission, quote unquote, from a highway patrolman to run his section of the interstate there. And when I got to Williams, yada yada yada, I met the mayor, And he asked me, is there anything I can do for you? And I said, can you get me permission to run the interstate? And he says, I'm going to do my best. And so he starts pulling strings, and one of those strings wound up telling him, oh no, there's no law against that. He can run on the interstate all day, all night on through Arizona and New Mexico. But they had told me I couldn't.
Yeah, I'm generally not reactive to to government, because generally it works all right. But I personally have a fulminant, burning hatred for authority that just makes up rules. I hate that. Like a maniacal hatred for it. So in situations, in a situation like this, if someone mentions that no, you cannot do it. Like in the case of that bridge, I knew I was wrong. So okay, the cop is telling me.
You were only breaking the law. You weren't doing anything wrong. And he's telling me,
in no uncertain terms, that that if he sees me doing that again, he's going to arrest me. But in situations where I know I'm right, I like to ask. Okay, so can you mention what is the rule that I'm breaking? What is the ordinance or the statute that I'm breaking? If you cannot mention it, call someone that can. But it's still, in some situations, it's inevitable. For instance, I got a ticket in Miami Beach, that's Miami Beach. Miami Beach has a police department that, in my opinion, is relatively below average in the way that they handle things like this. So this cop stopped me incorrectly without proper cause, gave me 2 tickets that he couldn't, because he couldn't have stopped me. And when I mentioned that to him, I said, you're doing this wrong. I'm going to go to court for this. And he said, you think you know what the rule is? I'm going to show you what the rule is. Go to court. But he said that in a very unfriendly way. And the other cop that was watching it, I look at the other. Is this how it's going to go? I say, yeah. And they were completely wrong. And I was so pissed off that I elected to go to court, and I really wanted, because I thought, I cannot wait for this ticket to be canceled. And I want to say in court to this cop, you should learn what the rule is. But I was running across America. The date of the hearing was set for February. And I called and I said, I need to have this rescheduled. I need 2 more months now, because I'm doing this thing, but over the phone I couldn't convince anybody to do it. And then I said, all right, and then I'll pay the ticket. But I never forget that, that some, of course, a lot of cops are really cool, are really flexible on the way they do things, and they try to look at that specific situation. And some guys, I don't know, maybe they didn't get a blowjob in their birthday or something, that they are pissed off, and they unload it on you. So yeah, I got a couple situations like that.
Well, but it always comes down to the individual in the moment who's got the badge and the gun, who makes that personal decision.
Exactly. But during the run, I only had excellent interactions.
People like a transconner.
There was one case that I thought, why are they reacting so strongly? And it's a good story. It was a bridge, this long, low bridge across a bay I think it was in Alabama. And I was running it, and suddenly a cop, and the traffic is separated, each way. So this cop came against traffic for like half a mile. I didn't see it because I was only expecting traffic coming from in front of me. And suddenly a cruiser comes from behind me and closes the way in front of me.
Whoa.
And then another cruiser show up. Another cruiser comes from the other end. And that was during my first run. I had the stroller, right? And then they asked me for my papers, and they checked my ID, and they asked me so many questions, and I showed the card. I always had the card. I would have the ID in one hand and my business card in the other hand, and I had all the signage on the stroller. And they were really asking a lot of questions, and they were looking at my stroller, checking, okay, that's your camping gear, all right. You have any weapons, they always have those questions. And then at the end, I said, when they said, all right, you're good to go, and I asked her, okay, I would love to ask you, why was it that you guys seemed so urgent and so on the edge? Apparently, now we are all cool, but I felt that you guys were on the edge. I said, yeah, but you don't know the story. It happens that about 2 weeks ago, a guy put his kids on a stroller. He came to this bridge exactly where we are, and he threw the kids out of the bridge. So when people saw you on the road, the drivers were freaking out and calling us, and then of course we were very concerned that it could be something similar. I said, oh, okay, I totally understand that.
That makes sense.
I totally understand. But they were very cool at the end, and I had several times the cops stopped by to check on me to see if I needed water, or if are you all right? Like, did your car break down? What happened to you?
In that case, do you need shoes, bro?
Yeah. Do you need any shoes? I had one guy, a civilian, a regular guy in Florida. He stopped his car. He said, oh, I saw you on the road like 30 miles this way, and 2 days ago you were like 60 miles this way. I saw you. I said, yeah, I'm traveling. I'm traveling this way. He said, yeah, check what I brought for you. And he went to the back of the pickup truck and he took a bicycle. And he offered the bicycle to me. He was so happy that he could help me, right? And then I explained that, oh no, I'm sorry, but I need to do that on foot. I cannot take the bicycle. But I really appreciate it. And I was very happy that someone had that thought, or like a guy that he stopped his pickup truck and he said something similar. Yeah, I saw you several miles this way. Yesterday I saw you another 30 miles. So you are traveling like this, right? I said, yes, I am. He said, okay, I brought you a dinner. And he had a bag from McDonald's with a Big Mac and the fries and the Coca-Cola and all that, right? And I thought, oh, that was very nice. Contractor truck, and then he left. Later I noticed that the nearest McDonald's was 18 miles ahead. So that means he passed me several miles before. He drove more than 18 miles to get to the McDonald's. He drove back at least 18 miles to give it to me. And then he drove home. All this is after work. Yeah. Right? So I thought, wow, this was really nice.
And that put a pep in your
and
step,
he took out that decision before talking to me. So he didn't know yet. Not for sure, right? No. So I thought, wow, this was so cool. And if you ask me, let's say up to 2005, I wouldn't believe stories like that, because I used to be more like a normal person. Now I know. I
find that hard to believe.
Yeah, now I know that people are nice. Now I know that the vast majority of people are super cool.
I would agree.
But I learned that gradually, and that learning process started in 2005. Before that, I kind of thought, like most people thought, that if you are on the road at the time, you're going to get, robbed, and if you're a girl, certainly you're going to get kidnapped and raped, and buried in the desert. I'm not saying that those things never happen, but the odds are so in our favor that that I would say the odds are so good that actually it's a better use of your time to concentrate on things that can likely happen. Like being hit by a car is likely. So that you have to put attention on.
Yeah, it's less likely that somebody's going to intentionally try to harm you, but never underestimate the dangers of distracted driving.
Yeah.
Whether you're reaching over to console a crying baby or trying to text someone on your phone, a distracted driver is a dangerous driver.
Yeah, exactly. So that was the big danger. I was also worried about food poisoning and flu.
I got some nasty food poisoning once.
But I was also worried about flu because when you maybe not now in 2020, but I read on Dean Karnazes' book that he would get colds sometimes, and he noticed that when he was on these ultra marathons and these events and all that, he would meet lots of people and he would shake hands with everybody, right? Now we know it's a pretty good idea to, if you are meeting one person, that day, and you shake hands, no big deal, right? But if you're meeting 250 people after your race and you shake hands with all of them, the chances that you are going to end up with some virus or cold or flu or something that you'll be in contact, those chances are pretty close to 100%. And if you are running every day, then your immune system is already super stressed. So while I was doing the run, I was shaking hands with everybody, but I would then use hand sanitizer. And I am the kind of guy that never uses hand sanitizer. I like to joke that the main ingredient is paranoia. But during the run I was using, because I thought, okay, now I'm meeting dozens or hundreds of people every day. I don't want to be getting colds and or get a flu.
That's just logic. That's just crunching the numbers.
It's very logical, yeah. Because now whatever is the percentage, you multiply by hundreds of people, and boom, you got above one. So you know that you will be in contact. And I was very afraid of having some bad reaction to food, and that could land me in the hospital. So I was being a little extra, not careful in the sense of being too concerned with the food, but I wouldn't mix certain things and I wouldn't eat anything that I'm not kind of used to. So I did a lot of pasta and meat, but if someone offer, we have this exotic, different thing, like I wouldn't go to a kind of restaurant that I wouldn't very normally go. But in normal civilian life, I can be a little more experimental. Let's go to this Asian, Indian, I don't know, whatever food that I'm not used to. I would go and try.
Yeah, I had a no spicy food rule during my transcon.
Yeah, I was trying to eat not too spicy as well. So normal life is different. It's different. You can test ideas.
One time near Albuquerque, New Mexico, another New Mexico story. I was, I think, 40 miles from Albuquerque. And I had a friend there who was going to set me up. So the next day I was going to just haul ass and try to make the whole 40. So to lighten my load and give myself extra energy, I ate like everything in my backpack, everything but like enough calories to get me to the next like interstate rest stop where I could get a sandwich and stuff. So I ate everything, and I had breakfast left over and one tin of oysters. One can of oysters. Ooh. I know, what was I thinking? And I was almost asleep. I felt this little corner of my stomach still had room in it. So I was already in my bedroll, and I got up and I cracked it open and I ate it, and I could tell like, something's not right. I'm going to do this anyway. I must not have been asleep for more than an hour. when I woke up with just all the alarms in my head going off, and I barely made it out of the tent before all the food made it out of me from both ends violently. And it was the worst night of that whole run. Next morning I get up, I'm shaky, and I got the cold sweats, and like, I could barely think straight. And I had to call someone I'd met the day before. Maybe it was a few days back, and he drove a long ways, and he brought, oh my gosh, I wish I could remember his name. Marvin was his name. Forget his last name though. Gosh, I love it when I can remember a name like that, Marvin. And he showed up, and he had a rotisserie chicken and 2 big salads, and like ginger ale and a beer for me. And it was the best meal of my life. I just sat in his truck, just shaking like a leaf, just eating this fresh food. And it revitalized me. And it took me an extra day to get to Albuquerque, but I made it alive.
Oh boy.
So, yeah.
When I was finishing the first run, like just a week shy of finishing it, I was in the desert there in Mojave, and I stopped on the side of the road to, there was a rock. I sat on the rock and I was eating a sandwich, and then a car stopped right in front of me, like across the road, but right in front of me. And I thought, with all this desert, hundreds of miles around us, why does he have to stop right in front of me, right? So some lights were on the dashboard already, right? But then he looked at me and he waved and he looked very friendly, and smiling and all that. And then he came over to talk to me, and he said, I don't want to sound intrusive, but can I ask you why you stopped exactly here? And I said, I stopped because this rock is exactly here, and so I can sit and have my... He said, oh, let me tell you why I stopped too. My brother, many years ago, had an accident, and he died here. So and we buried him in this land. So every year on his birthday, I come here, and I bring 2 beers to have with my brother. And then he asked, would you mind drinking one of the beers with me? And then he sat with me. Then we went to the desert, and we sat on a rock, and I drank a beer, and he was telling me things that he loved about his brother while we drank. It was such a strong moment in the entire trip, right? And at the end, he gave me some extra food he had in the car and stuff like that. So out of the blue, I had this incredibly meaningful interaction with a total stranger that for the rest of the day, I was like in awe of how awesome he was, or the guy in Louisiana that stopped his truck and he came to talk to me, and he asked, oh, are you doing this for anything? And that was during the first run, when I was actually trying to help an orphanage, and I was raising some money for them and all that. And he told me about his son that had cancer, and the McDonald's Foundation paid the expenses for the trips for him to take his son to New York every other week for chemo and all that. And his son didn't make it. But he was so grateful to that, because he said, no, every time I see someone doing something for someone else, I really like to help. And he opened his wallet and he gave me all his money, which was something like $200. He was like, I thought, wow, and he said, no, I want you to have all of it, because I'm trying to pay forward for people that really tried to help me when I was in the most desperate time of my life. So those kind of things, they drill a hole through your heart. They make you soft, because it's so gorgeous. Near Lake Havasu, Arizona. I was running north for a little ways, going up towards Kingman,
and I'd run out. It was like the one time I actually ran out of water and was feeling a little thirsty. And I knew I was going to make it to the next town, but I was starting to get a headache. It was hurting me. And I passed this broke down car, and I asked the guy, "Hey, like I know you're in a bind yourself, but do you have any water on you?" And he's like, "No, I don't, but I have an apple." And he gave me an apple, and he says, "What are you doing?" I said, "Oh, I'm running across America." We chatted for a minute, and he gets this misty look in his eyes, and he proceeded to tell me that I reminded him of his son, and he told me his life story, and that his son had passed away, and it was just like so honest and raw, and he cried, and we hugged, and he didn't even want me to leave. It was hard for me to leave. And then similarly with the acts of generosity, I've had people. I've stayed in mansions on the hill, and I've stayed with people who were collecting food stamps and barely had enough for themselves, and it didn't matter who they were, how much they had. Everyone was willing to give me everything. It was really incredible to see that, and I'm still wondering about that. Like what is it in us that it makes us so ready to support a person doing an epic thing? And
I really believe the simplest version, the simplest explanation to that, which is that people are just simply awesome. It's the simplest one. They're just simply awesome. And if you just give them an opportunity to notice you, and they see that you need help, they are happy to help. And it's not just there on the road doing amazing things. Sometimes your neighbor notices that you have a little problem. He comes over with a solution. It may be that you are just having any problem. We don't see that, however, as much in a city. It's in cities that the timing and the pace of the interactions doesn't help for that. But you can be driving your truck going to Alaska, and you stop on the side of the road, people stop and ask if you need help, because if they see someone walking down the road in Miami, you're just a guy walking down the road. But if they see you walking in the desert or in Alaska, they presume it's probably someone needing help. And I think that the same people that are indifferent here in the city, that wouldn't do anything, they would just drive by you. If they were, you just need to transplant them into the countryside or remote areas, and in a matter of days, they are tuned in into connecting with other people.
It's interesting. I noticed, a big part of the story of my run was the strangers helping me along the way. When I started, my goal was to carry all my own gear, not accept any food drops or any direct support at all. That went out the window by 29 Palms. And then by the time I'd left Tucumcari, actually as I was going into Tucumcari, New Mexico, at that point, strangers were showing up every single day, planned or not, like whether we'd arranged it the day before or they just happened to stumble across me that day. Somebody always showed up and took my backpack, my main pack ahead, which weighed 57 pounds fully loaded. It was a big bag. I was carrying a laptop, solar panels, battery, but way too much stuff. Way too much stuff. But remember that I was legitimately homeless as well. When I ran across the United States, I did not have a bank account and I did not have photo identification. I was officially out of the system. I was Christopher McCandless Supertramp style, out of it. I could not check into a hotel room. Shouldn't have been able to. Barefoot Jake was always welcome in the hotel, given a corner suite and a bottle of champagne. But if I tried to go in there as a normal person without ID, they would never have let me in. But people showed up and moved my backpack ahead for me, every day, and that was just that was amazing.
When I was traveling with a backpack, especially, the only thing that I never got myself to do comfortably was to be physically separated from my backpack. Even though that was not my entire life, but because my computer, my money, my ID, and my gear, the losing that backpack would be so disruptive to the mission.
Yeah.
That, for instance, if someone gave me a ride from the road to the city, and then the next day they would give me a ride back to the same point of the road, I used to have a little stick that if I was finishing the day and now I was going to get a ride, I would put the stick on the ground, my little flag, and then I would come back to that point. But if we stop at the store on the way, I wouldn't leave my backpack in the car. I would hold it, bring it with me, because of the remote possibility that someone stole that car while you see, it's paranoid at this point, but
it's legitimate concern.
But if the person is like I wouldn't separate myself from my backpack. That was it. No, there was no way to convince me to do it, and because of that fear. And no, that's all right. Nothing happened, but that was in the back of my mind all the time.
It was hard for me a couple of times too. Then I learned to trust, and it was very therapeutic for me. Just leave it at that. It was very therapeutic for me to trust people like that, and then every day to have them follow through. The best example of a stranger supporting me in that way was another New Mexico story. Shortly before Tucumcari, I forget the name of the town off the top of my head, but I had stopped at a Dairy Queen along the side of I-40. I slept in the trees nearby. They specifically told me I was not allowed to, and I just, okay, I hear you. And then I went and did it anyway because no one was going to come check. And no one knew the difference afterwards because I cleaned up after myself.
Yeah.
And the next morning, I was having a late breakfast, and I'd planned on, I want to say it was, Santa Rosa, I think is the name of the town I was approaching. And I was having a late breakfast because I decided I was going to take it in 2 days. Which was going to be totally doable. So I was going to get a late start, eat a big breakfast, and this family comes in, this hippie family. I got the dreadlocks and everything, and they wound up coming over and introducing themselves. I said, "What are you up to?" And I said, "Well, I'm running across America. I'm promoting a global community and conscious lifestyle. It's called the Bare Soul Project." And we talked for a while, and they decided, "Well, we'd like to help you. Can we bring your backpack ahead? Where are you headed to?" And I'd kind of brag to them, "Oh, if somebody would just take my pack ahead, I'd run all the way to Santa Rosa today. It's only 54 miles. Thinking I could say that all day because I wasn't going to have to do it. And they're like, "Oh, we'll take it to Santa Rosa for you." Shoot. So I stepped out at like 11:40 in the morning to do that, barely in the morning. But they were just coming back from burying their father, the husband's father. They just had this traumatic experience, and they had no reason to go out of their way to help a stranger, but they backtracked 54 miles, so a total of 108 miles added to their trip to take my backpack to a truck stop. And they took the time to find the right person at the truck stop, the right staff member and manager that they could trust, and they left it with them. And then they made damn sure that I knew exactly where to go. That was Sam J. Rose, the name of the guy who was the instrument that really made that happen. And I'll never forget things like that, and those small and big acts of kindness.
That's the way people are. It's very interesting, and it's sometimes I like to mention that I felt exactly the same in other countries. In fact, in some countries it happens faster because people are not so distracted. So they see you sooner. in America, people are equally nice, but they are busier. They are working harder, so they are more stressed. They work more hours as well than in most places.
They're convinced they're busier.
Yeah, they are pretty sure they are busy, and so it takes an extra step sometimes, an extra minute for them to notice you. Unless they stop on the side of the road and you're the only guy on the other side of the road, then of course they're going to notice you instantly. But especially in the city, it's different. But on my trips in Europe and Eastern Europe especially, Eastern Europe is mostly very poor, and with the difference that they're not just very poor, but most of them don't speak any English, and I don't speak their language. Now I know a little bit of Russian, but very minimal. And so you are in a country where you're a complete stranger, you're riding a motorcycle that is worth more money than they make in a year, and you are the stranger there. It's like you just stepped out of the flying saucer. And you don't talk the language, and they get out of their way to help you. I have so many stories of people like really trying to help me find a place to stay, really trying to help me fix the bike, if I broke down, or I would sometimes arrive in a place and ask for, where is a restaurant? That Google is not helping you, in the middle of a village in Transylvania, so you just ask, where is a restaurant? Well, guess what? Now they don't let you go to a restaurant. They want to feed you, so they want to make dinner for you, and they want to hear a story. And that made me realize all those experiences, running or riding motorcycles, made me realize that what they want from you is the story. They want to hear what it is that you're doing.
And be a part of it.
Yeah, and then they want to participate a little bit. They want to go and put their one dot in it by helping you. But they really want the story. So if you are not willing and have the discipline of being cool and telling your story and having the patience, because you have to tell the same story several times, right? And having the patience to answer the same questions all the time. Those things are necessary. And you are going to make friends and have a great experience if you are willing to tell your story. That's what they want. That's the currency that you're paying with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, think about mainstream sports or just television and movies in general. Think of how much people pay for their entertainment packages.
Right.
Here we were offering entertainment, for free, just for the asking. I think there's actually something in that. I think that adventure athletics could be the next big entertainment sport, the next big thing. Why shouldn't adventure athletics be the next NFL? Because it kind of fills that same void, serves that same purpose. And yes, I'm kind of plugging my latest project.
Yeah. So what is your next project?
Well, the overarching label for it is the Bare Soul Project, which is the story of the people, places, and ideas that I've encountered on the soles of my own 2 feet. It's also got a dual meaning. I spell it S-O-L-E, but it could just as easily be spelled S-O-U-L, because to do what we've done, you have to bare your soul to the world. Otherwise, you're just out there on a highway alone, and very few people can actually hack it that way. So what I've noticed is the networks that form around people like us when we're engaged in something like that, because people do come out and support us, and they want to be a part of the story, and they want to see themselves in it. Once they've made such a personal contribution as putting you in their car, and especially bringing you back to their homes and their families, that leaves a lasting impression. We're now a part of each other's stories, and you're going to be a part of each other's lives probably forever after that. Why not do something with it? Why not tell the story of that network? Why not organize it a little bit more and call it what it is, a global community? And that's how the idea of the Bare Soul Project started. And I realized that it's not just one person's story, it's the collective story of what forms around the idea of adventure and travel. I believe that people like ourselves are, we're just tools, we're needles, and we're pulling the thread of our story through the fabric of the people, places, and ideas that we're going through. And we're just part of what ties it all together. And that tapestry is there, but nobody's really calling it what it is. So that's the Bare Soul Project. And my goal is to create a culture around that is not centered around just me and my personal experience, but the idea of adventure athleticism and this very human concept that we are born, those of us who are born with whole, healthy, functioning bodies, like we're born with everything we need to literally traverse the world. I mean, I'm no swimmer, but theoretically you could swim across the oceans. Ask Diana Nyad.
Yeah, right.
That lady's a beast. That was incredible what she's done.
She's incredible.
Yeah, I got nothing on that. When I got tired, I could go to sleep on the side of the road. She didn't have that option.
Yeah.
And how many times did she attempt that before? Would she swim from?
No, Cuba to Key West.
Right.
I think it was her second or third attempt.
Yeah, that's just wild.
It's not like the English Channel is 30 miles, right? Something like that. But that is 90. Yes. 90 miles with sharks, and it's difficult environment. And I read about how they did it, and because there was no way for her. One of the problems that she get disoriented. But there was a boat going ahead of her, and the boat was dragging a line with lights. So she would just follow the lights.
Wow, that's gotta be trippy.
Going. Yeah, so it would be dragging this line with lights in it, and they had boats like monitoring for sharks and other things, but one thing that they could not avoid was the jellyfish. She said she got stung hundreds of times along the way. And that is just something that she just had to take it. I got stung by a jellyfish once in my life.
And that was enough, huh?
And I barely made it home. I thought I was going to die. It was maybe it's not the same kind of jellyfish that is here, but it was traumatic to me. I'm still afraid of going in the water. I check and I look around for jellyfish, and if I see a jellyfish a mile away, I'm not getting in the water here. I cannot be in the same state as the jellyfish.
And yet you live in Miami.
Yeah, and here it's all the fucking time. But yeah, if I go to the beach, the rare times that I go to the beach and I get in the water, first I look around, and I try to see jellyfish. I don't know. It's I'm very concerned with that now. But yeah, she's a beast. Yeah. So what are you doing now? Like what are the next adventures? And
well, I think the best way to cultivate this idea and start building this community is online, because the internet is what connects us all. Because we're talking about ourselves, crossing thousands of miles, and that's nothing compared to the circumference of the globe, and it's a sphere, depending on who you ask.
You're right.
So that's well, I wouldn't say it's impossible, but it's improbable to think that you can connect that all, yourself, physically. But the internet exists. So my big project is building a website, the Bare Soul Project, baresoulproject.com, BaresoleProject.com. And it's the hub where I'm building this, showcasing this project. It's centered around a blog, which is as much a narrative of my own story and stories of other artists, athletes, and adventurers around the globe who are doing a little bit different, as well as reference pieces for specific parts of the project. For instance, just this last month, I wound up in Oregon during the wildfires and used this network, this global community, in the spur of the moment to raise about $8,000 in under a week. And I was able to use that money for emergency housing funds to help people who had just lost everything they'd worked their whole lives to build, and who didn't have a leg to stand on, didn't know which way was up. And I got to them before the big organizations had even arrived. And I can't begin to describe how proud I am and how grateful I am to that community. But this website is where we tell that story and also provide reference pieces and resources for the people in our network who need such tools. So I want to continue growing that and tell the stories, not just of myself, but of the other parts of that community and the world around them. And to begin to invite other people to contribute stories and resources, and to host fundraisers to help. For instance, I've become a big fan of an orphanage project in Uganda. This guy named Ronnie, I don't even know his last name, I just know him as Brother Ronnie, who's over there almost single-handedly keeping this group of young children safe and under a roof, but it's really just that, as a roof, and they're sleeping on the floor. Each day I'm getting videos from this guy, very raw, these kids going and pulling water out of a hole. And I didn't run across the country to get patted on the back and told what a good job I did. If I wanted that, I'd just be a normal runner. I'd just go to a race and get my finisher's medal and toot my own horn that way. No, I did it to learn and to cultivate a community, and that community can do so much. But it's really just a metaphor. It's just an example of what humans can do when we work together. And part of the beauty of at least the story as I know it, that I've been a part of, so many people are actually working together who don't even realize that they're working together. People who, on paper, think that they should hate each other. One of my favorite stories from my TransCon was one day I was supported by this guy, Nate. And Nate took my backpack ahead the next day, and I happened to be there when he exchanged with the next host, who will remain nameless because you'll see why in a moment. So Nate hands over the backpack, and this next person gives him a big hug, and he says, "Oh, thank you, brother. You're a good man. You're a good man, Nate. Brother this, man that." And I get in the truck with this guy to go to his home for the night, and he took me back, dropped me off again the next day. And while I was in his home, this next person is talking about how much he hates the gays and the transgenders. And this is 2015 in the middle of the whole bathroom debate,
Oh yeah, that North Carolina thing.
Yeah, and I was like going across Kansas when that first started. It's the Bible Belt. That was very interesting. In case it's not clear, I am very much pro-humans and pro-everything. I mean, not just each to their own, but like everybody's just, everyone's cool. So this guy's talking a lot of hate speech, and had no idea that this guy, Nate, was born Natalie, and in fact had only had an upper done and was on testosterone, so like bushier, more manly looking than us, but still had a vagina. And no clue, but he had aligned himself with that person and recognized the man that he was, and had shown him that brotherly love without batting an eye or thinking twice. That was very eye-opening. And so that's the project that I'm trying to build, is just a way to help people make those connections in their own lives.
Yeah. those situations where the generalizations go bad, because we need to make generalizations just to go through life. It's necessary. People say, well, stereotypes are bad. No, stereotypes are time savers. The problem is that the stereotypes are limited application time savers. You can use them for certain purpose, but you cannot. You have to be always aware that there is a margin of error in each one of them. Because when you start disliking or hating people because of one of those generalizations, sooner or later, it's going to happen that you're going to find one of the exceptions, and that exception is going to make you look really fucking dumb. Because whatever it is, the generalization that you made, it cannot cover 100%. Or the behavior of a group. If you take the behavior of the group and you generalize towards the individual will always surprise you. And then either you admit to yourself that you took the stereotype too far, so you made a dumb move by taking it into the context where it shouldn't be used anymore, or you're going to walk away from the situation and now everybody else knows that you were fucking dumb. But that's the problem. People have to learn to use stereotypes and generalizations, and they need to learn when to not use them anymore. And the final frontier of that is the one that is non-negotiable, is the individual, because the individual can always surprise you. That's the thing. And if you learn to be curious about people individually, you always find a good story in them. There are very few people that you cannot find an angle to like them. Very few. They exist. There are some, but it's difficult to find them. But it's difficult to find them. So you're not likely to find them. And if you really look at them in the eyes and you listen to them, you discover that there is an entire universe there, and an entire experience that is fun to discover. So yeah, I sometimes what is necessary for someone to stop being either a racist or whatever is the other ist. Sometimes they just need to find those exceptions to their own rule and realize that, oh, this person is really cool. And if it happens enough times, yeah, they learn it. They learn it. I don't think there is anybody that is so attached to his own ideas that will not be dissuaded by those personal experiences, of meeting people and being amazed by them, and then realizing, oh shit, that's exactly in the group that I was supposed to hate, right? Or that I was supposed to disrespect. And the experience doesn't, how's it called, the bigotry or whatever it is, tends to not survive that experience, the personal experience. Because the hate, whatever it was, in most cases, the hate was a construct. So the hate is the word is not artificial, it is abstract. So the hate is abstract. When they meet with the people, that is concrete. So that tends to be stronger. Unless the hate came from a also physical and a real experience, like you were at war with the Japanese, and maybe you carry that bad sentiment about the Japanese for the rest of your life. Okay, I understand that. You're still going to miss the point in the individual examples, but But I understand that it may be a hatred that is very difficult for you to overcome. But in most cases, that's not the case. It's just something that your parents used to say, or your friends, or the people in your in your area used to say, and then all we need is one person with a strong personality and a great sense of humor to go and destroy all that hatred, right? And a lot of people are very good at that. I was trying to remember the name of that guy. That he's a black guy that he decided to talk once with a guy that he was like a KKK or some other ultra racist group. And after a while, the guy said, "Well, I came from this background in which I hate black people, but you are making it impossible to hate you because you're so cool." And then he the guy said, "I feel weird now because I feel ashamed of the way that I was thinking before." And
what a brave and intelligent person.
And that came spontaneously. And he became famous because he did that in person, like just becoming friends and being nice to people. He did that to hundreds of people already. Like he converted hundreds of racist, like officially racist people into understanding that, yeah, but individually it will not fit, right? So yeah, I think the path to understanding people and accepting them can very often be shaped by those personal experiences. All it needs to happen is that one day you are in the middle of a big crisis and exactly the kind of people that you don't like is right there next to you helping you, and then boom, that entire situation changes. Yeah, disasters tend to do that. When you are both fighting the same flood and you are both fighting the same wildfires or hurricane, and you are side by side and helping each other, yeah, that changes everything.
When I became involved in the fire relief efforts there in Oregon, at first it was very intense. 5 days, no sleep. I broke my arm the first night, and then as things started to mellow out, we started to branch out and invite more and more people and more types of people to volunteer. Because of my experience being by choice but legitimately homeless, I took a particular interest in supporting people who were who were habitually homeless, chronically homeless, I've heard them called. So people who were truly displaced by the fires, but were being overlooked and shunned because they'd been displaced from under a bridge. But I know that that was their home.
Yeah.
They were at home and now they're homeless. They weren't homeless before by our standards, by mine and their standards. Now they are.
So now they're homeless by any standard.
Yeah. So I was making sure that those people weren't left behind. I gave a lot of them rooms. So many of those people immediately. I remember one guy in particular. He's given me a lot of media material to use and his permission to use his name. His name's Chris Apodaca. He did 8 stints in San Quentin. Has a really colorful history. He's reformed. He's a really good, upstanding person now. And his one of the first things he said before he even got to his room was, "Do you need more volunteers? When can I go back down and volunteer?" And I told him, "Dude, take a day off, take a night off. You just rode your bike 40 miles to get here after you barely escaped the flames. You're covered in ashes. Go take a shower and a nap, and then let's talk." But so many of those people, those homeless, people that we try not to look at, when we're on the street, they were fully prepared and did go back to the evacuation site and handed food and supplies to people who still had more money in their bank accounts, still had vehicles that worked, had more than they did.
Yeah.
And then that was the position I was in. Before the fire started, I was sleeping on someone's garage floor, and I went right back to it. Like, I was, I'm still basically homeless. But
the homelessness, because I saw so much of it, going across the country, and especially while I would say the cities where I saw the most of it were San Francisco. When I visit, San Francisco has a chronic problem.
And they do have a problem.
Yeah. Los Angeles, and here in Miami. Miami is not well known for it, because apparently the numbers have to be 6 digits before it gets noticed. And here we have like 15,000 homeless or whatever number it is. Mostly in the downtown area. But sometimes when I do a hash run, I make the hash run go through right in the middle of it. So people, one of the last hashes that I organized, we ran through the homeless area, and then we ran through the parking lot of a top hotel in downtown with all the Ferraris and Lamborghinis and and the Teslas and all that. Then back to the homeless part, then into one of the best shopping malls with all the good Dolce Gabbanas and Gucci's and all that stuff, and the Banana Republic, and then back through the homeless. And because I wanted to keep doing that contrast, super rich here, super poor here. So,
you're a good rabbit.
It was a very interesting run, and we did the beer check in the homeless area, and then we gave them some food and stuff like that. But what I discovered is that what I used to think about homelessness before was mostly very incomplete. I would not say wrong, but it was very incomplete. I didn't have a good notion of how many of them are actually in mental prisons. So it's not that they are not capable of doing a job. A lot of them had great jobs before, or they were in the military, because we are so nice to our veterans. But they were either in the military or they had good jobs, but then a combination of things happen. Many times it involves a divorce, or being kicked out of the house by your parents, things like that. And then they don't find a way to fit back. And then and usually they have something in a pattern in their thinking, that even if you gave them all the conditions, like some say, all you need is a shower, a haircut, and a job interview, and in some cases that will solve the problem. You give them a place to stay, a shower, haircut, bring them to job interviews, and they are back on their feet in a matter of 1 month. But that doesn't work in every case. In some cases, they are into some mental loop that until you break that loop, there is no way there is no way for society to be able to absorb them back. And plus the drug problem is much bigger than I used to imagine. I noticed that, the drug dependency is not easy to solve. There is no easy solution. Like, some say, oh no, you cannot support that, they need to pull themselves up by their bootstraps. But that works in some cases, but not in every case. Yeah. And then when you have chemical dependency, you have, for instance, the Toronto solution, right? That they are giving heroin to people that have a certain level of dependency, that they cannot get them out of heroin, so they give them heroin, and at the same time they try to work out the other social issues. I'm surprised that is not a major conservative idea, because when you run the numbers, give them the heroin and assistance costs less to society than having them stay on the street. So when you look at the most through the most cynical, economical, purely capitalist lenses that you could possibly do, you see that there is an advantage in actually working that kind of social program. But if you go by super simple rules like, oh no, you should never help them if they are taking drugs, well,
and homeless
that's
is homeless.
that rule is too simple. It doesn't work. Works in a few cases, but it doesn't work, enough. So there are a lot of people, and I know a lady that she was at some point she was employed. She was very functional, a writer and a journalist, and she was living in her car for like 3 years because of one of those mental prisons. She couldn't get herself to get a place and stay in a place and maintain that relationship with the neighbors and the landlord, and so she kept living in her car. But from her I learned something very interesting. When you are traveling, like if you're traveling full time, or if you are running across America, or if you are on the edges of being homeless, what I learned from her is that when people ask you where you live, you should have an answer. Even if that answer is not really factual, like let's say your parents live in Georgia. So you say, oh no, I live in Georgia. Even if that's where you just get your mail, right? But you should choose a place and use that as an answer, because that is it. When you keep saying, oh, I live out of this backpack, or I don't have a place, or if you say you're homeless, it triggers something in our mind that is very dangerous, that can lead into desperation and into depression. So to avoid that trap, you have to have an answer. So even during the time that I had all my stuff in a storage, paid storage, and I didn't have a house where I lived, I still always had an answer. Yeah. Oh no, I live in Miami. But even though I didn't have any place to hang my hat in Miami, but I would still say that because I learned it from her. So, yeah.
So I've got options, because I've got an ID from North Carolina, one phone's from New Jersey, the other phone number is from South Carolina. My Barefoot Jake Brown LLC is based in Delaware, and I'm currently in Miami.
and you just flew in from Oregon.
From Oregon, and I'm headed back there soon. And I right now I'd say that's my home. But, homelessness is not a problem. There's nothing inherently wrong with homelessness. It's violent people that are a problem. It's drug addiction that's a problem. It's and
it gets to certain proportions where it definitely is a problem in the collective sense. Like you go to Los Angeles, to east side of downtown, and you have 15,000 people living in just a few blocks. That is an industry.
Oh, sure. There's a lot of reasons why there's that many people living in that condensed space. I mean, there's millions of acres of free land in this country, and there's this misconception that if we let people, free range, that they're somehow going to take over all this free space. No, they're not. I mean, they're not going to.
They need to be close to a grocery store.
Yeah, like not having a home isn't the problem. It's the culture around it and the way society stereotypes and treats those people, in my opinion, just from what I've seen.
Homelessness is complicated, but it's such a solvable problem in the sense that compared to other challenges we had, I think it's very shameful that we didn't have this managed better. It's weird because it's not a poor country; it's a very rich country. So it's very very unusual that we don't have any grasp on it. Any.
Well, look at our grocery stores and restaurants that they're throwing out food that could feed hundreds every day.
Actually, that is changing. Let me give you some good news.
Oh,
a few years back, a law was passed at the federal level that makes the supermarkets and the stores, it makes any business not liable for whatever happens if they donate food to the food banks and or donate food to people.
So it can be expired.
Unless that is specifically a state law that gets on the way, then that's a problem. But at the federal level, and that was the major problem. So gradually, but it's going to take years, but gradually now more and more stores are creating, for instance, in some stores they have this discount package that they put only products that are very close to being expired. So they were probably going to end up in the trash, but they give a super nice discount and some people buy that because that's what they can afford, right? Or they buy just the vegetables that are a little... I saw that in a supermarket recently, I don't remember where. But they had like the vegetable section, then they had a section that they called the ugly veggies. Mm-hmm. And it was all the ugly ones, but they were all fine. It was the tomato that looks, it's
fine. It just doesn't look like you want it.
It doesn't look like the one in the advertising, right? Or some things that were too close to be ripe or too close to expire. So they had that section and I thought, oh, awesome, especially if I want to buy veggies to make a salad today, this is the best. But so yeah, it's changing, now it's becoming easier, especially for the food banks. It's becoming easier, and then there has all those side effects, right? If the food banks are having an easier time to get ingredients and they can distribute food, then more homeless are going to accumulate around them. So every problem you fix on the chain increases the problem on the next link. And then you need to work that angle, and then work that angle. It would be very nice if we worked more on the angle of not creating new homeless, which is the most difficult. It's the most difficult. A lot of people get on the street because they get thrown out of the house by their family, many times for religious reasons, like girls that get pregnant and then their parents kick them out. So now they are pregnant and homeless. And if they are out in the country, they are really far away from a woman's shelter. So that means that an abortion clinic is much closer to them than the woman's shelter. So there are a lot of interactions between different systems and different problems, right? And we could have solved this problem many times over. Look, we burned through billions of dollars. We're so rich, this country is so rich that we can afford burning money every year in programs that we don't need, in systems that don't make sense, in responses to crises that actually don't help. We do all kinds of stuff, but we never get that kind of effort into solving one problem that is very real, like homelessness. You see, like we spend an extra $30 billion a year in airport security.
It's a lot of money.
The government spends that in what I call the greatest welfare program in human history, which is the TSA. Yes, I said it, and I go through them every time I travel. And I always remember, I hope they didn't read my blog. because I call them all kinds of things. But the fact is, they don't have any number to defend their existence.
Yeah, TSA
There is
doesn't know what they're
no
looking for anyway.
statistics that defend their existence. So to me, it's a welfare program. But it's $30 billion a year, every year, since 2001. 2002, actually, when they start.
You could feed a lot of people with
How
that.
many billions of dollars? No, I don't want to feed anybody. I want to get them out of the streets. I want to solve the problem by the root. You know, and most of it is mental health care. You know, it's not, they're not on the street just because they are missing a haircut. It's not that simple.
And not necessarily because they're lazy or incompetent.
Yeah, it's not that simple. Sometimes it is, but sometimes it is a combination of several of those problems. But a lot of those problems, when you look behind the simple explanation and you try to look at the root, you always end up in the same place: mental health. We have a huge mental health crisis in this country. You know, and everybody is so interested in talking about things. You know, it's like the next step apparently is that they are going to blame, you know, all the homeless accumulating downtown on the existence of cheap tents. You see, someone goes to the school and shoots someone, they blame the gun. They focus on the gun.
Instead of the finger on the trigger.
Instead of what is happening on the mind of that person. How did they get to that point? You know, there is very little willingness to go down that rabbit hole, because that takes into dark places. That takes into, okay, so how was the structure of that family? How was that school? You know, was that school actually nice? Did he shoot a bunch of kids, but first he shot the kids that he hated the most? You know, like, I don't know. We cannot ask that kind of question. Especially right after things happen, nobody can ask that kind of good, interesting question. They can only talk about the guns. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't talk about the guns. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we can only ask some kinds of questions, but we cannot ask all the relevant questions. It's the same with the COVID thing. I gave up. I got tired of. I have COVID exhaustion of talking about it and trying to bring up good questions.
You've traveled around the world, and recently you've seen very many different ways of dealing with it. You cannot get on social media and talk about it. You cannot do a video that is serious about it without getting kicked out of YouTube. You know, like you cannot contradict the official line. It doesn't matter how many times the official line was reversed, because it didn't make any fucking sense. But so you cannot ask the really good questions, and people cannot slow down and talk about it, but with some thinking in the middle. Like one of the things that I'm doing now is, if I post anything, my Facebook is not a science page, right? It's not super serious. It's half comedy and half talking about stuff that is in my mind. So in other words, it's half comedy, half brain farts. Okay? And some of my brain farts are well inspired. Yeah. Go ahead. Some of my brain farts are well inspired. But I am so amazed at how many times people answer that without having any time to think. Like, I post a 1 hour long video, and in 3 minutes someone answers. I said, but it's impossible that you watch the video. You cannot have an opinion about it yet. I like that post.
Yeah, you cannot possibly have an opinion. You didn't travel back in time to watch the video. Or I post a comment about something and someone replies instantly. So now, when it is on my page and people respond super quick and with their predetermined ideas, because they already had a conclusion before they hit the question, now I'm telling them, no, I'm removing it, and when you actually think about it, You know, I want to hear your opinion, but I want to not necessarily, but I want to hear your opinion when you actually have one. Because right now you came in with something prepackaged, you know. So there is no way, you know, if you. I post a lot of videos with this guy, for instance. One of my favorites is Eric Weinstein. Eric Weinstein is one of the greatest geniuses of our time, of our lifetime. He's I would say he is one of the wisest and smartest people alive today. Maybe the number one. Okay? His videos are intense, and they are usually 2 hours, 3 hours long, right? Every time that I post one and someone answers that, criticizing whatever is the idea that was already in their mind, sometimes it's not even what they are talking about in the video, I just go and delete that comment. This is not my Facebook page is not a serious page anyway. You know, it's not like by removing your comment I am reducing your possibilities of advancement in the workplace, you know, and really endangering your financial future by removing your comment. Mm-hmm. No, it's just a comment in the page of some dude that likes to talk shit, right? But some of my friends already got the clue. They don't answer, you know, because they know I'm going to delete it. I'm deleting a lot of stuff, you know. And now also, if someone never adds anything and just comes in to bash it or to bash someone else, you know, then yeah, not just I delete the comment, I remove the person. I don't need to have 2,000 friends on Facebook. There is no human need for that. No. I need a number of friends in real life. Those I need. Right? But what is the difference between having 1,500 or 5,000 friends on Facebook?
You probably don't know them all.
You'll never notice anyway. Yeah. So from time to time, someone posts a very sour comment to something I post on Facebook, and then I go and I look, who is this person? Then I look at our conversations in the past. It's like nothing. I said, and I think, why are you here? Like, delete it. Get out. So, but that makes me sad. It makes me sad that people are not curious and interested in interesting, deep conversations. That the laziness is so widespread. And then it really makes me sad when I see that people are ideologically possessed. That means everything they see and everything they read and interpret is filtered very narrowly by partisan politics or very clear ideological lines. So they are not really thinking at that point anymore. You know, they are just adopting, all right, so I am a conservative, so I'm supposed to think this way. They don't think like that. I mean, that's what's happening unconsciously or automatically. So, oh no, I am conservative, so it has to be like this, or I am liberal, supposed to be like that. I even had on one of the latest podcasts that I did, I was talking to my friend Jesse about how I used to say that I'm liberal, and because I am a classic liberal, English liberal from 19th century, you know, my thoughts match that kind of liberal. So I used to say liberal, but then it doesn't really match, and one of my friends pointed out, you know, maybe you should stop saying it because it's not matching reality. And then I was having a conversation with Jesse about it, because I said it's really funny that you say that you're so conservative, and I'm saying that I'm so liberal, and we agree on everything. So one of us or both of us are wrong on our characterization of ourselves. And I made the case that he is actually a libertarian. And I am like a half libertarian. And that he's like a half libertarian too. So we are the same thing. We're just mislabeling ourselves. And we kind of agree on that during the podcast. You know? So I like conversations about politics, but at that level of resolution. You know? But then it comes to the way that most things are debated, then I don't have any interest on it. Or someone like I had a friend that he was my friend, and he supported my run both times. He was a great supporter, but he got ideologically possessed. You know, in that particular case, BLM. You know, and then he really objected to some stuff that I post on Facebook, which again is not that important, but and then he started calling me using their slogans, you know, using their slogans on me, or their bullet points, right? So like, check your privilege, you know, stuff like that, you know, or oh no, that's white privilege or something like that. And I explained to him, look, man, I love you. I love you. You were important in my life in several points. And if after this discussion you ever decide to come back and be my friend, you know, I would be happy that you are my friend. But I'm not having this conversation anymore because you call me on my white privilege, and that is a stupid insult. A stupid insult. And I don't have that kind of conversation. I'm not interested. You know, and then I'm friend. But he knows that anytime we can be friends again. As long as he doesn't do that kind of thing. Because that is fucking racist. I hate that. You know, so, you know, like a friend that I didn't let him in a party. I was having a party here. And I had some 20 people or so, and he showed up on a Che Guevara t-shirt. I told him, man, I like you and you are welcome to my party, and I'll be happy to give you another shirt, but that shirt is not walking in. That shirt will not be here. So, oh, you are taking it too seriously. I said, yes. Oh, but why that? I said, I'm not explaining to you. All I'm saying is that you are welcome, the shirt is not. That's all I'm saying. And he decided to leave. He decided to not walk in.
Must have been a really good shirt.
And it's a perfectly all right answer. He has the right to not show up at my party. You know, but I believe that if it is my party, I can draw the line at some point.
It's your party.
And I told this story, and someone said, "Oh, so why if he showed up with T-shirt with Mao or Stalin?" I said, "Same problem. Same problem. Any of those communist things." I hate communists almost like Tony Montana in the movie. Okay? I hate communism because I saw so much of the destruction that he left behind, even if I saw it 30 years later. But it's so evident. So evident. It's such a, to me, it's that is a space for debate and variety, but that space is not infinite. It has a limit someplace. It's like this. Imagine you are going to have a dinner, and there will be all kinds of people there. You're going to bring people of different religions and different ideologies and different backgrounds, right? And everybody's welcome. But then you bring one of the guests. It turns out to be a suicide bomber. And now if you disagree with him, he's going to explode your party. So he's going to stop the debate. So you cannot be that tolerant. I think that people that stop the debate are not welcome to the debate.
So a good quote once said, tolerance of intolerance is cowardice. Like that.
Yeah. Some people think that you can be tolerant to everything. So let's say they don't understand that some movements are anti-intellectual. So there is no way to include them in the debate because they are against debating. So that is a problem that you cannot deal with, not to debate. So I like to have this kind of conversation. But if people want to talk, Democrat versus Republican, then I don't want a minute of that. I don't care.
Yeah, I'm very happy to say that I honestly don't know the difference between Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives. I have a vague idea of liberals and conservatives, but it's vague. I don't know right versus left. And I want to stay that way because I'll tell you what, I ran across this country on the soles of my own 2 feet, supported by the goodwill of strangers every day. Yeah. I don't need to know politics to know my country people.
Exactly, and
running for office 4 years from now.
Yeah. and their ideologies didn't matter in that reality, in that moment. It didn't matter, right? Normally. There may be an exception here and there, but generally it doesn't matter. Because people are so fundamentally good. Also, they are fundamentally honest. People tend to be honest. And I believe that the only thing that makes a certain number of them act dishonest or act violent is because they are in cities. In fact, I think that cities don't make much sense, like really big cities don't make much sense because they don't allow really creating communities, and and a lot of things are so dysfunctional that people behave dysfunctional. It's and now with the pandemic and all that, and the change to using Zoom instead of in-person meetings, is making a lot of people leave the office and decide that, okay, now I want to work from home. Now I'll just keep doing this. Because they realize that why be back in the car for 2 hours a day? Yesterday I was driving north to Fort Lauderdale at 6 p.m. and the traffic looked like Sunday afternoon. It was like flowing perfectly fine. And I thought, this is better.
That can have such a positive impact on our country. I mean, less pollution, the roads last longer. 20%
of the cars out of the road, the road is awesome, right? So
more transcon traffic.
So a lot of people move to work at home. That is great, but also a lot of them are realizing that it doesn't make a lot of sense to be in a super big city if they can avoid it. You can go to a small town, you can go to the countryside now. Internet is everywhere. Well, almost. We're still working on that, but it's
around.
but we are very close to 100%. I'll give it another year, maybe a little more than a year. You'll be able to have high-speed internet everywhere. I mean, everywhere that matters. So why be in a big, ultra big place? So many people are moving out of places like Los Angeles, New York, whatever. Even big cities that are actually pleasant. Still makes sense to get out and not pay very high prices for things and deal with the security problems. So it's like another thing that I think doesn't make sense is ultra large schools. Because imagine this, if 1% of the students are really big problems, okay? 1%. And of that 1%, 1 in 10 are so fucked up. They are so out of the edges. And they have access to their grandpa's guns.
Mm-hmm.
You know. So if 1/10 of 1% of them is that one guy, okay, but the school has 5,000 students, what are the chances that you have one there?
Oh, I don't number.
It's 5. 5. So you're in positive numbers already. So we have everything designed like factories, right? Schools are big factories. They are factories of producing education here. On this, they have two sides, right? One side is producing standard education. The other side is warehouse these kids while the parents go to work, right? So that's the other function of the school, and they are both useful. But if you keep optimizing that for productivity, at some point you'll have a school with 5,000 students. I guarantee at least one of them is possibly a problem. Now, is that a simple solution that I'm suggesting? Oh no, all you have to do is have smaller schools. No, it's not that simple, you know. But you can at least estimate that it's going to happen. Especially when some kids are bullied and they are attacked by others. There is a tremendous amount of groupthink in schools. You know, like for instance, if a kid tells that he has an idea of he supports something that is very unusual in the school, the amount of pressure he can get is incredible. Incredible, the amount of pressure. So the bullying is pretty intense. So all those problems keep compounding, and we never work on them. We always work on things, you know. What we have? Oh, we need a place to put these people. You know, we need or even worse, when it gets to businesses, usually everything is solved with a product. Or you need this product, and then things will go fine. Or you need to take this one thing, and then your thinking is going to be better. You know, so it's everything is related to one thing that is usually a product. And guess what? The only way to have is by paying them. Now, like I saw this. There are these events for nutrition and exercise and and gyms and things like that, and I went to one of them and they were selling this product because they say, oh, people don't eat enough vegetables, so this is, you take this and it gives you that nutrition that you're not getting because you're not eating vegetables. And I asked her, so why not sell vegetables? Of course they didn't like me. I was not invited to keep trying their samples, but
I was getting a kick out of people saying that they can't afford to eat healthy. Like, actually, if you buy ingredients fresh, it's usually better ingredients, and it's actually a lot less cheap, or a lot cheaper.
Yeah, that food is too expensive is not really. Not really. Whatever the diet you want to follow, you can probably find it for a very good price. So, but no, the solution is always a product. You are disorganized. Oh, what you need is this organizer. It's a piece of furniture. No, if you don't change your habits, your place will continue being a mess. That's not going to make a difference. Look at the number of people that have treadmills in the house. And they
versus
never
the number of people who use them,
They never use it, right? The number is staggering.
I can believe that.
Staggering, right? So they thought that what they need to get in shape is a product. That doesn't work. I mean, it may work for some people, but it doesn't work in general. So what is next? What is next for you?
From here? Or
in the near future, what are you told that you're doing the Bare Soul project, but what is the next thing? Like, do you have a specific project?
Well, I
that
do.
People can possibly help or participate.
Yeah, actually, as I said, I'm trying to cultivate a culture and a community that's not centered around any one person. And I'm a runner. I like to say I'm an ultra pedestrian because
Nice, ultra pedestrian.
Running's cute and everything, but real athletes do it for days and days, and we don't just run. We walk, we eat, we sleep.
Yeah.
Not to brag, but real athletes can do it for 10 days.
Yeah.
That was a challenge, not an insult.
Yeah.
Take it as you will, though.
Yeah.
And again, like we're all online now. Virtual events are all the rage these days. And
Right.
I am designing my own Bare Soul Project style virtual races that will be based on my experience of running across the country. I'm going to use that as a model. So like as you register for this event and as you reach different milestones, you'll be like, you'll get a narrative along with it. Like, oh, well, you reached Tucumcari, New Mexico, and like this is what's here, and like this is a little piece of history. Like check in at the Blue Swallow Motel in Tucumcari. Check in at the Hilton in whatever New Jersey when you get there. And it's I think it'll be an easy way to tie in sponsors and to show people like to give people a new perspective. Like sure, you might be running laps around your high school track or around your community, but you'll start to comprehend the significance of those miles and how they apply in a real world setting. People will realize that the only thing that's stopping them from doing things like what we've done is simply a choice, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I want people to realize that we're just crazy. We're not special. We just chose to do those things.
I wish I was more successful at convincing people that what I did they could do too. I'm not doing a great job at that because I see a lot of people react to that even much later when they comment, oh yeah, but what you did is so special, it's so amazing and all that, and they start talking as if I am Superman.
Yeah.
And I have to keep reminding them, no, wrong. I didn't do anything that you cannot do. It's just a matter of taking decision and that making sense in the context of your life. But if you start thinking that I'm special, you are missing the point. I have to keep reminding them. Don't think that I'm special because you miss the point. And I don't even like to joke about it because I don't like to reinforce the idea that I am in any way special, because that is a big lie. It's not. I am. If I don't think I have anything in me, any particular characteristic that makes it easier for me to run across America.
I know, I've got superhuman stubbornness.
Yeah, some people say, yeah, you're stubborn as a mule, so it was better for you. I said, okay, maybe, but a lot of people are stubborn. That's not such a special thing. I'm not a Greek runner, from mythology. I'm just a dude that got out of the couch one day because I was pissed off with the way I looked. That was it.
The mission of the Bare Soul Project, almost since its inception, has been to promote a global community and conscious lifestyle. So we've already talked about this concept of the global community and how we're all intertwined, even when we don't realize it or think we are. The conscious lifestyle that I want to promote and cultivate is not radical change. It's just like radical reperception. I guess I just made that up here on the fly. I don't want people to necessarily change, but to make conscious decisions, and to recognize. Well, I mean, we talk a lot about we in America, at least when I was growing up, we talked a lot about recycling and how we can all do our part and things like that. And I want folks to see that they have the choice. They have more choices than they realize. And when they stop doing something just because they think they have to, and they realize that everything's a choice. The fact that you get out of bed in the morning is a choice that you make. That you go to school or you go to work, you pay your bills, you get groceries, you put food in your mouth, you breathe. It's all really a choice. And breathing's a little bit of an exaggeration because if you pass out, you're going to breathe anyway. It's automatic. But just about everything that we do is a decision. And I just want people to make that decision consciously, just be aware of it. And I find in my life that, or have found in my life, that taking responsibility like that and accepting, the choices that I'm making, it just, I make different choices. or very often I just simply don't do something.
I really want people to see that I'm not Lance Armstrong. I want them to see that I'm more like Homer Simpson, because then, but because then they realize that if he could do it, then I can do it.
And also that you don't have to.
That's when magic happens. It's when they realize that it's within their possibility, and I didn't have anything special about me. I just took a certain combination of decisions that end up turning out special, and I hope they see that in you as well, because you can have a tremendous impact, on all these things that you're doing. A lot of people are paying attention to you, and if they realize that, I can do that too. Somehow I can either because they participated or because they go to an event or because they meet you in person. And where it comes to that, I would say I already had an enormous gratitude for how much you helped me, but meeting in person was really cool. It was really, really cool.
It felt like we'd met before. Like when I sat down next to you in the van, I'm like,
"This is right.
I know this guy."
Exactly. And then somehow I forgot that you're a hasher too. So then you mentioned you're a hasher. I said, okay, even better. That's nice.
Bakersfield, baby.
Yeah, Bakersfield. Yeah. So I want to really thank you for doing this, and I want people to get to know you. So we're going to put the URL to your video to your website at this point in the video. And I hope that people follow it. They follow you. A lot of them will discover that is something for them in this kind of narrative.
Make sure you all subscribe to the blog and register, because when you register, you get all the extra perks.
So I hope people participate, because that is something for them there. And get to know in person. Get to know in person the people that they think are their heroes, and they are going to discover that they are a regular person too.
But it's a barefoot hippie.
It's just a person that got there sooner. Or that's another phrase that I like to use. That is nothing that I did that you cannot do. I just did it sooner. Right. So it's totally possible.
I like the idea of OKTs, only known times. That's when it's like an athletic term. It refers to like the first person to do a thing, and that's what I trip out on, because I'm not the best athlete out there. I'm just the only idiot who made it from one coast to the other with no shoes on. Other people have tried and they caved and put shoes on here and there, so it doesn't count. But somebody's going to come and blow my time out of the water, but they'll never be the first. That's true. that's my pride moment there.
Okay, man. I'm very happy that you made it. Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me on here, and thank you for letting me support what you did in 2014.
That was fun. All right, man. Thanks so much.
We hope you like this podcast as much as we like to produce it. This has been made possible by the effort of dozens of volunteers, supporters, partners, and visionaries that are helping us build Xenio Travel. Please visit our website